Hello, 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 hello. So I am re-recording this because the first time I forgot to press record. Um, so today we're going to talk a little bit about intermittent fasting. And the reason we're talking about this is it was something that was brought up in one of the weekly check-ins. They want someone to know a little bit more about what it was, how it worked, and then also how it can help with weight loss as well. So let's dive in. So this for you, if you are doing all the stuff, you feel like you're doing all the stuff and you've hit 30 and things are just not working for you. Like you're doing the diet that you used to do, perhaps you're doing workouts you used to do, but you're just not seeing the results that you used to do. And you just feel like now all of a sudden you've turned 30, 35, and maybe in 40, and you just aren't getting the results that you want to, but you feel like you're putting everything into it that you should be. Perhaps you've hit a plateau and you are struggling to get over the plateau, or perhaps you've just got stubborn fat that you would like to lose and you just can't seem to shake. So this is a really good topic for you if you fit in those categories. And I think something that could potentially be quite beneficial. So what is intermittent fasting? So intermittent fasting is essentially you alternating between periods of eating and periods of not eating within a day or within a week. Like there are loads of different types of fasting, intermittent fasting, but there is only a couple that I'm going to focus on today. Um, and the types of fasting that I'm going to focus on today is number one, the 16-8 method of intermittent fasting. This is essentially where you eat for 8 hours. You have an 8 hour window where you can eat and then you fast for 16. So, for example, you might start eating at 12 at midday and then you eat until 8 p.m. and then you stop eating at 8 and then you fast until 12 o'clock. So that gives you a 16-hour window where you don't eat. It's quite popular. It's quite beginner friendly. It's not the easiest, but it's really good for fat loss and it's really good for insulin sensitivity and habit control as well. The second one is the 5-2 method. So you'd eat normally for 5 days and reduce your calories on 2 non-consecutive days of the week. And then, so this is easier for people who want to have a little bit more flexibility within the week as well and within what you're eating. Number three is the 12-12 method. I would say this is the easiest way of getting into intermittent fasting. So you eat for a 12-hour window and then you fast for a 12-hour window. So essentially you start eating, let's say 7 a.m. and you finish eating at 7 p.m. For me, that would be more a start eating at 8, finish at 8 p.m. And then you have your 12 hours off. So you eat for 12, have 12 hours off. That's really good for lowering your insulin levels, stepping in towards intermittent fasting, and also it's really great for regulating evening snacking too, which I know a lot of us are prone to. Um, so who would benefit from it? So a wide range of people really benefit from intermittent fasting, but I would say the biggest ones are people with insulin resistance. I will talk a little bit more about that in a moment. And then people that are looking to manage their weight, and then also, but otherwise healthy, may I add. But people who are perhaps looking for a bit more structure around when they eat, perhaps you find yourself grazing in the morning before you've had your breakfast, or in the evening after your dinner, you just tend to sit down on the sofa and you want to grab a little snack from the cupboard. Perhaps you're inclined to go for chocolate or something. It can be a really good way to get a little bit more structure around eating. Um, Also, for individuals who are looking and interested in longevity or metabolic health as well, it's really good from that perspective. It can give your digestive system a bit of a reset, and also you'll find for this happens for a lot of people, and I find this too. It gives you more mental clarity, and it's good for people who are, or it's used by people who are pre-diabetic as well. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about insulin, and you probably think of insulin as diabetes, like you tear the two together. I'm not talking about it from that perspective. I'm talking about it from how it can help you and the role it plays in your fitness journey. So what is insulin? Insulin is essentially the hormone that helps manage your blood sugar. So what the body does is the body releases insulin in as soon as the body releases the insulin, and it's essentially to move the sugar out of your blood, and then it stores it inside your cells. Normally that happens in your muscles and the liver, and then that gives a place for the body to use energy from. So it then stores it so the body can use it for energy. Why does this matter? So insulin is affected by a number of different things. So insulin increases and decreases. So as soon as you eat, as soon as you eat food, your insulin will peak. There are certain foods that are going to cause your insulin levels to peak higher than other foods. So let's look at things like carbohydrates, sugars. They're the main ones that as soon as you eat carbohydrates and sugar, your insulin levels come up because you're eating. So carbohydrates like sugar, you're putting that inside your body, it goes into your bloodstream. So your insulin has been secreted so it can go and take that carbohydrate away from the blood and go and store it somewhere else. So whilst your insulin will peak during meals and during whenever you're snacking, there are some things like carbohydrates, like I say, sugars, that make it peak higher. So when your insulin levels are high, your body struggles to do a lot of different things because it's focusing primarily on transporting that sugar around your body. But while the insulin levels are high, your body struggles to burn fat efficiently. It's going to struggle to keep your energy levels stable. You'll find that when the insulin comes down, you're going to get an energy crash. It can unregulate your hormones a little bit, and it can also give you more cravings and make you feel more hungry as well. So over time, your body, and the higher your insulin keeps peaking, over time your body can become insulin resistant, which means over time, like the more carbs you eat, your body, some people's body can get to a point where it becomes insulin resistant, which means it's secreting a higher amount of insulin than what it used to for the same amount of carbohydrates. Your insulin levels go up higher. But the aim of the game is to have a higher insulin sensitivity. So we want our body to only secrete the amount of insulin that we need to transport the sugar around our body. We don't want it to overexcrete insulin or we don't want it to become insulin resistant. So the pros, let's talk about it from a fasting perspective. So when you're fasting, it gives your insulin levels a rest, essentially. The longer you're fasting for, the more of a rest it gets. So if you're doing a 16-8, that means it's got a 16-hour window to come right back down and sit at a lower level. So think of your insulin levels as your gateway to your fat loss. The higher insulin levels, the closed gate to fat loss. If you're dropping your insulin levels down, it opens the gateway to fat loss. So if you've got that 16-hour period when you are essentially not eating, your body is more inclined to use fat as its fuel instead of the carbohydrates. So from that perspective, it's really, really beneficial when it comes to fat loss. Also, if your insulin levels are lower, it can improve. So it's not for everybody, like fasting isn't for everyone, but it can improve your energy levels and it can improve your mental clarity. It doesn't have that effect on everybody, but I personally find that my cognitive performance is much better if I have been fasting. It can also help with better digestion, and it also gives your gut more of a rest, and because your inflammation, it reduces inflammation as well. The more you fast, like if you're doing intermittent fasting, this can, if you're somebody that has become more insulin resistant, so you're excreting more insulin than you used to, essentially to the same amount of carb, it can improve the insulin sensitivity. It can make it better. So if you start a period of fasting, and then over time, when you do start eating sugars and carbs again, you'll find your body is more efficient at handling the carbs that you're eating. But there are cons. Like everything, there's pros and there are cons. So when it comes to fasting, um, fasting isn't for everybody, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for everybody. But if you have got, like I said before, some stubborn fat loss, or if you want some structure, then it's great. But without food comes hunger, can come irritability, and it can be you can get mood swings, feel fatigued, feel tired. It can reduce your performance in the gym if you are not exercising, let's say, at the optimal time. And if you're emptying on a fasted stomach, then you can reduce your performance when it comes to maximizing your results in the gym. If you are not careful about what you're eating when you're fasting, so if you're eating in those reduced windows and you are cutting out your meals, you're cutting out meals, or you're not eating enough nutrient dense food, then there is risk of a nutrient deficiency. But on our program, where we look at our macro split, where we look at eating enough protein and pairing it with fiber, then and healthy fats as well, then you should be okay. You just need to be mindful of what you're eating. You might also find while you're fasting, your energy can drop a bit, and like I say, your performance in the gym might drop. It's just a matter of juggling around the fasting times, finding what fasting works for you, and working out at the right time around the fasting hours. If you have any questions on that, let me know and I can help you with that. You'll also find that fasting isn't for everyone if you've had, especially if you've had like an eating disorder before, because it is essentially restricting your times you can eat, what you can eat, or like the hours you can eat. So that can also trigger some unhealthy food relationships. And in some women, it can cause hormonal imbalances as well. So people that should avoid fasting altogether, pregnant people, people who are breastfeeding, pregnant women, should I say, women who are breastfeeding, perhaps people that have got a history of eating disorders as well. If it's, yeah, people with history of eating disorder, anyone with very high stress levels, or also have problems with hormone imbalances as well, and definitely not for people with type 1 diabetes who are underweight or have any form of chronic illness as well. Like it's always something, if you're typically a healthy person on the whole, then it's usually something that's okay. But if you're always ever questioning it, maybe it's something you need to speak to a medical professional about, because that's not something I can necessarily advise on. The real magic when it comes to fasting is not fasting alone is not going to give you optimal results. But when you pair it with strength training, it does wonders. As long as you're staying hydrated, because you'll find that you will need to drink more when you're fasting. You feel a bit more dehydrated. You definitely need to add in more water. And also electrolytes are also a great thing to add in if you are intermittent fasting too. You need to be making sure that you're eating high protein meals and a well-balanced diet with plenty of nutrients in it. I would also say if you're typically somebody that is struggling doing this for weight loss, for fat loss, then I would say that it's really good to pair with a low carbohydrate diet, because carbohydrates are essentially what peaks insulin quite high. So if you can reduce your carbohydrates down whilst doing intermittent fasting, you're opening that gateway for a longer period of time, much longer period of time, and you're going to maximize the results that you see. And lastly, no weight loss goal, no muscle growth, no real progress happens if you don't have your sleep, rest, recovery time, because ultimately that is when your muscles grow, when your muscles repair. And so pairing all these things together with your fasting, intermittent fasting, good hydration, strength training, balanced meals. If you want to focus on the fat loss side of things, low carb diet, and then having good quality sleep, rest, and recovery, that is where the magic will happen. So I've wrapped that up in a nutshell. If you have any questions on that, hit me up, let me know, and I can answer them personally for you. I touched a little bit on carbohydrates in this one, but I am going to do another one on carbohydrates and how they affect your performance and how they affect your performance, but more so how they are affecting your fat loss journey. So shoot me over any questions and I will let you guys crack on. Thank you so much for listening.